Let's talk about switch operator in this video. You can use this conditional operator when you want to check a value of some variable or an expression. An amount of possible variance is limited. First of all, you need to understand that in some situations, switch operator is much more convenient than a group of standard if operators. Let's solve a very simple task. A user enters a number, and if it's 1, the program prints word 1 in the console. If it equals 2, the program prints word 2 in the console. And if it equals 3, the program prints word 3 in the console. If the user enters another number, the program prints phrase some number. Let's try to solve this task with help of if operators first. Now we need to create a scanner object for entering a number from the keyboard. Scanner. And we need to import scanner and close the scanner. Then just create a variable and enter it from the keyboard with next int method. And here we need just a simple if operator. If a equals 1, then print 1 word. Not println 1. And if it equals, if a equals 2, I might get rid of these curly braces because we have only one line inside of if operator. So we might write something like this, 2. And finally, if a equals 3, we need to print 3 here. And let's run the program. User enters 1, and we can see 1 in the console. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. System out println. Please enter the number, a number. And that would be println method. Okay, so we just want to invite our user to enter a number. And user enters a number, and we can see 1 if it was 1, or we can see 2 if it was 2, or we can see 3 if it was 3. Okay, what if user enters 4, for example? In this case, we can see nothing because our program does nothing in this case. We don't have if operator for this case, and that's why our program does nothing. Okay, and we might discuss this program a little bit, because in this case we have 3 if operators, and it's not very good code, because if a equals 1, this system out println method will work and we can see 1, but after that both of these if operators will be checked also, because the program has to execute them. And of course we already printed 1 in the console, but this condition a equals 2 will be checked, and it's not true. If a equals 3 will be checked, and if it's false also. Well, that's why it's not very good program. We might add else operator here, else. And this modified code will be something like this. If a equals 1, this line will be executed. Else, we need to check another condition. Else if a equals 2, this operator, this line will be executed. Else, and this else, we might say that this else is for this if operator. Else if a equals 3, this operator will be executed. Let's try to run this program. For 1, our program says 1, and for 2, our program still say 2, and for 3, our program says 3. Okay, what if I want to see some number in the console if it was not 1, and not 2, and not 3? In this case, I might add else, and let it be this else for this if operator. Else execute this line of code, system out println some number, and let's try this program. 1 for 1, and 2 for 2, and if user enters 3, we can see 3 in the console, and if user enters, for example, 10, it will be some number, and if user enters, I don't know, 100, it will be some number. So user can enter any number, for example 12, and it will be still some number. So now we might say that this program works fine, but here we have very strange lines of code, and I wouldn't say that this is very understandable program. And all of these if operators we might replace with only one switch operator, which is better, which is much more convenient and much more understandable. Of course, if you can use this switch operator. Let's try to do that. We might just use switch keyword here, and here in round braces we need to specify our variable which we want to check. In this case, this is just a variable. And inside of switch operator, we need to have a lot of case sections. And each case section might check one option, one value we need to check. For example, it might be case 1. And inside of this case section, we might do something. For example, we want to print 1 in the console. And if it's 2, let's change our behavior. Let's change our word. Let it be 2. And if it's 3, let's say 3 in the console. And let's try to run our program. If user enters 1, for example, in this case we will see 1, 2, 3. Why is that? It's because here this case is executed, but then program didn't stop, and this system println and this line were executed as well. So sometimes we might need that. We might need that behavior of switch operator, but here in this particular case we need to use break operator. And this break operator says that we should stop execution of our case section right here at this particular point. And of course, right now we might check it. When user enters 1, our switch operator stops right here. But if in this program user enters 2, it still prints 2 and 3. Of course, we need to add break operator here, and we might add break operator here. But for last case, it's not important, but just in case. Okay, let's try 1. Okay, and 2. This is perfect. And if user enters 3, this is what we wanted. Okay, what if I want to enter 4, for example? In this case, our switch operator does nothing because we didn't say anything about it. And if it's 10, for example, it's still nothing. Okay, let's add one special section here, default. Default section says that these lines, or this line, one line, will be executed if none of these options were executed. And here we might say some number. Some number. Okay, let's check it. 10, some number. And what if it was 4? It would be some number in this case. And for numbers 1 and 2 and 3, these sections would be executed. Let's try 5. Perfect. Now we have only one switch operator, which works the same as all these if operators. And if you can understand this switch operator well, it's much better to use exactly this switch operator in such cases.